Hi everyone, it's FSketcher Fashion Drawing Tutorials, and in this lesson we're going to render Seyit Ares, if I pronounced correctly, the name of the designer, and a beautiful design that was proposed by Stacy on our Pinterest board. So let's start drawing. So in this case I'm using a template from May's set of templates. So if you're level 3 patron or higher, you can find it, or you can just draw something similar or use any other pose. So we're focusing on this woolen texture. We have oversized shoulder line and also very interesting sleeves. I think it's just attachment sort of. So the sleeves, they continue, they go down, like they are very long, and so whenever you draw, just try to get rid of all unnecessary lines like arms inside, so you don't get distracted. And here we have a metal corset. Okay. Also pay attention to the slope of your chest, like the direction of your chest, if she's bending or not. So the corset is a heavy structure, you should follow the shape of the body. So I'm decreasing the size, the width of the shoulders. I think I made them too wide, and okay. It's pretty heavy material, so we don't have too many wrinkles, just some waves along the sleeves. Here we need them a bit longer. And the skirt. So I made a lot of cuts for this part because I was changing a lot of things. So I was drawing, erasing, thinking about how to position all that fabric and to the side. That's how you show the fabric that goes behind. It can be side of the hemline of the skirt, anything. And here I also was thinking a lot how to position the fabric from the other sleeve. So I just don't want them, I want them to overlap. So one is in the front and one is at the back. So here is where the sleeve will end. And I slightly changed the shape of this fabric hanging. Maybe here we can make it a bit softer. And yeah, so just get rid of all the symmetry, make it more or less natural, so it's not too wavy because she's just standing, she's not moving. I'm using cornflower blue. You can see the hue on your screen. It just looks like this. And I'm going to use two markers that are close in hue, but they are different in value. One is darker and one is lighter. So now I'm using the dark one because here we will have a lot of extra layers, like we will make some dots on the top, then some white dots with a pen, and that's why all these shadows will be covered. That's why I'm trying to get stronger contrast. So now I'm using blue pearl. And of course, if it was some woolen jacket, I wouldn't use two markers. Maybe I would use just blue pearl. First I would draw the shadows and then just cover everything with a layer of markers, because this contrast is too strong. It just looks like those parts are not shadows but wet parts, right? But here, since we're going to have a lot of layers like on the top, all these will be covered and hidden, so I'm fine with more contrast. So again, also very often I'm adding shadows like this. They look like, as I told before, like a range of mountains just along the outline. You can see some waves kind of. I'm not just repeating the lines of the outline, I'm just making these waves. Next, this is optional step. I'm adding lilac marker on the top because I want to get this color that is between blue and purple. But again, you can use any marker. You can even change the color if you want, just to twist the design and change something. And again, we're just practicing, so it's not really about, it's more about the texture. So just use anything that you have. It's just about changing the hue a little bit. So the metal part, here we have this, I think, conical or conic shape where we have the sharp point, just like a subtle version of Madonna's Gautier like bra. And I'm using Cool Gray 4. First I applied some spots and then I'm covering everything. Because whenever you have a chance to add some texture, add some very soft shadows or reflections, try to add them first, just as some spots, and then apply the base layer. Because base layer is always just some flat something. Now with the same Cool Gray 4, I'm adding many really tiny dots. To really achieve these tiny dots, you need to like not to hold the marker point for too long on the surface. Just touch very fast with the very nib, the top of the nib on the marker. Here I'm also adding the shadows, first with a Cornflower marker. The process is the same. You add the shadows, then you cover everything, uncolored area, shadows, everything with a base layer, which is going to be blue pearl, the lighter blue. So here I'm just completing the details of your belts and just covering everything with blue pearl and adding lilac. We have many colors of like more than 100 different markers, but still sometimes you need just a little bit different color, and mixing markers can help, just working as a paint. So now I'm using black marker. And very often in metal, it's just about working with some black, gray, and maybe add some other colors just to show the reflection on that metal. And here is important just to follow the shape of the metal details. So here we have all the shadows stretching towards that sharp point of the one side of the bra. And the area that is closer to that top, the tip is thinner than the area that is closer to this round edge, because usually we have these triangular shapes that are stretching towards the tip of the, like anything conical. And then I'm adding some blue, and I'm adding blue pearl because we have on the sides, because we have all this garment around that is being reflected on the surface of this metallic shape. Adding more of gray, some blue, more of the gray. I'm adding around the black spots just to build a smooth transition. Adding blue that is reflecting the sleeve part. Okay, while the corset is drying, I can work with your woolen parts, and I'm using lilac to add the shadows, very similar to the shadows that we added before with darker blue, the cornflower. Just because, you know, you can see we don't have that strong contrast because we added all those cool gray 4 dots, and now the contrast is gone, so I'm adding shadows again. And just follow me, enjoy the process. You can make up something by yourself. I'm actually just trying to translate this texture, and there are many ways of doing that. And well, definitely not like you don't have to remember all these steps in the perfect order. Just try to understand the idea, like of why we do that. Try to always take a look at the reference image and try just to see different subtle shadows, spots on the clothing, just all the shadows, all the differences in the outline, because woolen outline, like outline of the woolen garment is different. It's more fluffy than outline of leather. And usually we have all the shadows concentrated where we have overlaps or along the outline. So next step, I'm using whiting gel pen, and I'm using Sakura pens and Sakura 08. And this is like a medium size of the nib, medium size of the like all these dots. So, and once the it was actually so I'm using interchanging like 10 and 8. 10 is a bit thicker, but the thicker the pen, like the bigger the flow of the ink, you get the thicker dots and lines, but also the flow of the ink is better, because with white ink pens sometimes the flow is not that good, maybe because of the difference of the, you know, the liquid inside for white pens, like black blue pens. So once everything is dry, I just go through with a blue pearl marker or lilac as you wish, like just you change the direction, it's more blue or it's more lilac by changing the markers. And I just don't want this dots to be too white. I don't want them to look like glitter or something. And I'm just covering with one layer. Don't scribble too much on the top of a white pen because it will smudge. Here I'm adding extra shadows again with the lilac marker. And then if you feel like you still want more of like strong white dots, you can add them. Because sometimes when you add a marker on the top, it just becomes too, you sort of lose those dots because they smudge eventually, or the flow of the marker is too much, and it just destroys all those dots. So you can add more when marker dries. So now covering everything with lilac. And working with a wider nib is very convenient, and you have less chance of like smudging everything. Just don't push hard. And try to work where possible with a wider nib, because your hand will get used to manipulating it better. And so now I'm using black marker for your belt. It also has metallic texture, so it's very reflective. And again, I'm working with black and going to work with gray marker. And here, because the shape is different, we have these vertical lines. Okay, so just fixing the shape with a fine liner. Adding a little bit of blue pearl. And cool gray 4. And then, of course, if she had some yellow like garments, we would add some yellow instead of blue, because these metal parts are reflecting the surrounding garment. And just showing the details, outlining the belt. Okay. A bit of cool gray 4 again. And I want to add extra gray on the corset, because those gray parts look a bit flat, and I want to add more. Okay, just adding a bit of lilac because we have it. We used it before, so it can be reflected too. Okay. And here I'm just widening this right side because it looked a bit smaller than the left side. Adding reflection with the white ink pen. And here we have the eyelets. And here we have some like holes, so I'm adding them with black marker. And again, adding some light with a white ink pen. Just you can add a small spots on one half of those black circles. and some stronger highlights on that cup. And I want to add a bit of orange. So, and a bit of blue in the blue area. Okay. So you can add a bit of black in the gray area. Just orange is opposite color to blue on the color wheel. So it is always a good combination. So now I'm using ALMOND Promarker and working with her skin, showing the relief of her body, several layers to show the shape. Next, I'm covering everything with ivory, which is lighter. Like in my case, is a choice for the highlights of the skin. And next one is dusky pink, and it's darker one and the darkest out of 3. And I'm using it while ivory is still wet. And I'm cleaning it on just clean paper, because I'm working around, there's a lot of pencil, fine liner, and sometimes you can just accidentally touch it with your marker. And if you don't clean it time after time, you can just smudge that dark ink on the skin and just make your drawing a bit messy. So now I'm using white ink pen to just outline the shape of the corset, and here I need to add a bit of black, so the distance between those circles and edge is the same on the both sides. Extra highlights and outlining the bottom part as well. Okay, some brown, just to add a really thin line of shadows, because whenever the clothing is very close to the skin, you shouldn't add a huge line of shadow, because the bigger the shadow line, the information it gives is that the item is far from the skin, like some wide skirt. But in this case, all the parts are very close to the skin. So as usually, I use purple pencil for the lighter skin tone to add extra shadows to show the details. Now I'm using sort of a Prussian color of a pencil, one between blue and violet, and I'm adding some shadows approximately in the same place where I added before shadows with markers, like lilac and cornflower in the very beginning. Well, along the outline, you can see that those wave the outline of the sleeves. I just continue one side of it to the inside of the jacket. That's how you stretch that folds. And if you want to add more of the white spots, you can use your pen. And of course it depends on how you want the end result to look like, because you can keep it as it is on the skirt, or you can add more of those spots and it will look like the upper part. So more of the dots. Yeah. When it's something woolen like tweed, you don't need perfect circles, like you don't need to apply those dots so they are perfect round shapes. So you can do it faster. Sometimes they will look like a tiny strokes. It's okay. So I'm adding the outline with white ink pen for your skirt and using some brown for extra shadows here and there. All right, so continue working with your skin, starting with almond, our mid-tone for the skin. And then covering everything with ivory, the choice for the highlights. And then using the darkest one that I chose for this skin tone is dusky pink. Dusky pink has a little bit of orange in it. It's a warm marker. Same as ivory. Ivory is a bit yellowish and almond is a bit pink. So adding a bit of black to add the shadows. And some cool gray 4. Again, thin line of shadows below the belt. Some dots here and there. Also sort of like shadows. I'm adding them in the area with the shadows, but also showing the texture as well by applying as the dots. Okay. Again, the outline of the skirt. And working with your legs, starting with almond, showing the shape of your knees, and for the upper part, I'm coloring quite wide area on both sides and then covering everything with ivory. And while ivory is still wet, adding dusky pink on the sides. And then using almonds again and trying to blend the area between dusky pink and the rest part of your leg. Working the same way with the lower half, and here I keep only like thin stripe in the center for the ivory, because here the most highlighted part is the bone, not the muscles. So that's why I'm keeping the highlighted area as this sort of a stripe in the middle. So add a dusky pink, then working more with almond just to blend everything. And here it's important to work a bit faster, so the surface is wet and markers can easily blend. Using cool gray 4 for the shadows. And the purple pencil that I use for the outline, and I add some blurry shadows along the outline. If you add too much, it will look a bit like a bit reddish. So if you feel like it's too much, just erase it. It should be very pale. Working in the same way with other legs, so I'm just going to show this process is a bit faster. I think I'm forgetting English. Like I'm living in the area where I'm not using it that much, and yeah, I see the results. So now I'm using white ink pen to add highlights just in the middle. You can add it as lines on both parts, up and lower, and as some circle in the knee area. So usually a drawing like this takes around maybe 4 hours to complete. And then I just cut out everything unnecessary every second and just create a video of 40-50 minutes. So sometimes I need to show certain parts a bit faster, the repetitive process. So I'm using cornflower, now blue pearl for the back side of the skirt. And white ink pen. Okay, just using pencil to show the outline. I'm using cool gray 4 because this backside also needs some cool gray 4 dots. It should be a bit darker. Nice. So let's go on. Using cornflower, and well, here I want just to show where we need to add some shadows. I'm following the shape, and here we have these turns, so this wave goes down, and I'm just continuing the side of the wave and adding some shadows between. You can have some shadows somewhere like in the middle of this fabric piece. Wherever you have some turns, like here, the fabric is hitting the ground. So here we need to show that kind of a place where it changes the direction. Then you can add some shadows along the outline. And after that, you are going to just cover everything with a blue pearl as we did before. Add dots with cool gray 4, like tiny dots. Then add highlights with white ink pen. And then if you want to subdue this intensity of white dots, you will just cover everything with one layer of blue pearl. The same process that we used for the upper part of this like design, like the skirt and jacket, or like dress if it's one piece. I want to change the shape of your hand a little bit because it's just too, it was like too Lego-like. And here I will also show the shadows. Okay, so this is the like outer part of the fabric, but we need to see also some inside part as well. So here is the outer surface. Okay. And it stretches till here. And then I cover everything with blue pearl. Okay. And here is some inner side, a little bit, you can see. Okay, here I covered everything with cool gray 4 dots and white ink pen dots. And now using lilac just to cover everything. And now using the blue pencil, just showing the shadows in the same area where we added shadows before. And if you ask me why did we add the shadows if we cannot see them, the answer is we can see them. Because if you take a look at these fabric pieces, they don't look uniform, they don't look absolutely the same in each part. So even minor changes like these tiny layers that you add before the base, before following layers, they give a little bit of information. And whenever you need to give that information, you have to add something if it's needed and not add anything if it's not needed. And so you can learn something from these tutorials, you can learn something from any other art classes that you take. You can learn a lot of things by trying to draw anything. Just it's about observing. Just try to see the details and try to break those details in understandable pieces, like those metal parts. They are actually a combination of like black shapes, gray shapes, and white shapes, and some reflected colors. And yeah, so I keep working the similar way. This is the inner part of those fabric pieces, so I'm adding cool gray 4 to make them a bit darker and differentiate them. You can add some spots with a cool gray 4 to show the shadows between some folds on the fabric. And if you need to add some extra white spots with your pen, and let me know what you think about live streams, because I want to start soon live streaming both on Patreon and on YouTube. And I want to base those YouTube videos on the selection of the designs from our Pinterest board. So no matter where you watch, like on Patreon or on YouTube, you can watch the tutorials based on what you want to draw. And let me know like what you want to see there and how you feel about it in general. Okay, so this part is pretty good. Let's work. Sometimes if you added too much of white spots, you can use blue or lilac marker and just color on the top. And it works both for some woolen garments or it's some sequence dress. If you have too much of white spots, you can always cover it with gray or any color that you used for that garment. Again, starting working with a pencil. Also with a pencil I'm adding this a little bit kind of fluffy texture on the outline, so it's not super flat. And pencil is a good companion of yours if you're rendering something woolen or knitwear, because it has this noisy, gives this noisy effect. Here I'm showing the process a bit faster because it's the same. I reduced the size of your foot just visually, and just adding the sandals, the strap, and you can see that the lines that separate fingers, they are a little bit sloped to you can see the slope, that's diagonal line from the center towards the outside, and the same for the other leg. So it's not perfectly, they are not perfectly vertical lines. And the finger lines are short because we're looking not from the top but from the front. So don't draw the toes as you think they should be, like long toes. Draw them shorter. Okay, I hate my English. So I'm coloring all these straps and everything with black. If you feel like, if you're afraid of using black marker for tiny details, you can use just fine liner. And coloring in the same way, here's how I apply the shadows. You can start working with dusky pink, like you can start working with almond as we did before. When the area is not too big, like hands and foot, I really sometimes do it as I want, just don't care that much about blending. So here we have fabric going through the chains, so I'm just for now coloring everything with black, and here I'm adding some cool gray for around black, some blue. So here we have ruffles, you know, those this bag looks like that collar with ruffles, and I colored it with the blender and then adding lilac and blue. And when the surface has blender, all these markers are applied very softly, so when it dries, add more of blender. And you can see this lilac is very pale when it's added on this wet surface. So I'm using that just to add this very subtle color. And now using ice gray 1, you can, and again we're drawing sort of stretched triangles that stretch from the edges towards this circle in the center. Please watch in a full screen mode so you can see all the details. I'm using ice gray 3 just to make certain parts, especially parts closer to the edge, a bit darker. And again, take a look time after time at least to the reference image to see what I'm trying to show. Okay, showing the edges in the center and adding some highlights with a white ink pen between those dark gray parts, because dark gray parts are actually the bottom parts like of the folds, and we're adding highlights on the top parts, and with some waves showing the outline. You can also use just pencil for that. Finishing with the soles of your sandals. Add the highlights on the upper strap of the sandals. Using Cool Gray 4 for the shadows, really thin lines, because the sandals are really fitting tight. They're very close to the skin, so we don't need wide shadows. And if you want to show nails, better to use white ink pen instead of gray pencil to have a clean finish. So your headband, I wanted to make it also metallic. So following the shape of the headband, so we have this straight black lines and some gray spots. And she's going to have black hair. So I'm leaving some strong highlights, but I'm going just to color rest with black and add highlights with a silver pencil. So using blue pearl, just coloring almost everything. Just color everything. Don't forget to clean your marker also if it gets darker because of black marker. And use Cool Gray 4 just on the edges so you get a bit smoother transition. Color the rest with black. And then I'm going to use a silver pencil for the highlights. And if you don't have one, it's a nice tool to have, because it just gives really nice reflection. And I have a Prismacolor Premier Gray pencil. It's a wax pencil. You can use oil pencil or also wax pencil. So this is how it looks like. And it makes it so easy to work with black hair. You can also use if you have some oily pencil that is blue or lilac, it will work good as well. Or white pencil. Just I find white pencil a bit too light, I think. So here, since we have many layers of these white dots, black pencil doesn't work very well in this area. So I'm adding some pieces of hair with a fine liner, but I usually don't use fine liner because it gives this greasy effect to hair. So here I will add just a little bit and then use black pencil. So here you can see very soft strokes. It looks much more natural. And some baby hair. Okay, so we're almost done. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Please don't forget to add your suggestions to our Pinterest board. And I have several links on the wall in Patreon for that board. But you can always text me and I will add you there. So thank you for being my patron and see you very soon in the next tutorial.